Presented by Sky Vodka. Please drink responsibly.
Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. We will get to stories from the NFL and the NBA in a moment, but we lead today's show with awful baseball news from Florida. Former two-time Cy Young winner Roy Halladay died today when the private plane that he was piloting crashed into the Gulf of Mexico. Halladay was 40 years old, an 8-time All-Star, and was said by all accounts to be a cinch for the Baseball Hall of Fame when his eligibility began in 2019. Mike, your thoughts on Roy Halladay?
Tony, I think that pitching in Toronto, which he did brilliantly for 12 of his 16 seasons as a major league pitcher, I think it's sort of obscured to folks watching south of that border how great he was. You know, you wind up, when something like this happens, it's kind of tragedy, you want to review the person's life, and we did, of course. It was before we came down to the set. And Halladay was 19th all-time in winning percentage, ahead of such greats as Tom Seaver and Sandy Koufax. 203 and 105 was his record. You think of him and CC Sabathia in terms of guys who pitched the bulk of their careers in the 21st century among the handful of greats, and yes, future Hall of Famers, and only 40 years old. I was surprised he'd been out of baseball for 4 summers already.
Pitched a no-hitter in the playoffs. I mean, I think you have Randy Johnson and Pedro Martinez, and in the slot right after them, you can make the case for Roy Halladay on a personal level, because you know I don't like flying. So when something like this happens, and I think about it, I always think back to Thurman Munson, the catcher for the New York Yankees, who was also piloting his own plane. Mm-hmm. And I think he would have probably been a Hall of Famer, just behind Johnny Bench as a catcher in that period of time. And it is a shock to my system when I hear something like this. It's always bad.
Yeah, it's a shock to your system when I don't even think of the flying part, which I do virtually every day, not my own plane, but someone taken this young, 40 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, so you have this baseball career, which is 16 years, and it's great in his Hall of Fame, but you're hoping he has 40 more years just to live
12 years in Toronto and 4 in Philadelphia. Yeah. Philadelphia, not a big market. I mean, he's not there in a major market like Boston, where everybody pays attention all the time. We do have other sports stories to discuss, starting with Mike McCarthy's spirited defense of his quarterback, Brett Hundley. After last night's walkover win by the Detroit Lions in Green Bay, McCarthy said, quote, "Brett Hundley is not our issue right now. I believe in Brett, and that's not just a press conference sentiment. He's got what it takes. He has it in his body, he has it in his mind, and he definitely has the heart," unquote. Well, Bon, is Mike McCarthy right to be all in on Brett Hundley?
Yes, it's called coaching. And a lot of times I don't see as much of that as I'd like to see. You know, I've called you on some Sundays and said, Tony, I don't think coaching is what it used to be. And we go over those lists of guys we thought were Hall of Famers 30 years ago who we think might be a Hall of Famer now. And I don't know whether Mike McCarthy is that or not, but I like this. I got a guy here who I believe in, who I've invested 2-3 years in. And I'm going to coach him to the best of my ability. And I'm going to be emotionally and mentally with this kid. That's what's necessary if he's going to sort of improve himself and be quarterback at some point of the Green Bay Packers, whether in relief of Aaron Rodgers or as a starter. So I like this.
I think Aaron Rodgers is the most irreplaceable person in the entire NFL, because unlike Tom Brady, he can still run around. And Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback maybe of all time. But Aaron Rodgers right now, you lose him, I don't think you win any games. I don't know you win any games with anybody other than Brett Hundley, but I don't think you win with him. He had 26 completions last night, and so did Matthew Stafford. But Hundley's were for 245 yards. Stafford got 361 and 2 touchdowns. And much of Hundley's stuff was garbage time at the end, because three quarters, he had 16 completions for only 97 yards. So when you have, and they have good receivers. They have Cobb and they have Jordy Nelson. When you have good receivers, this is a real struggle for Brett Hundley at this point. So I would say real struggle.
This just in. They're not 32 good quarterbacks in this league.
That's right.
32 teams. There may be 20. So that means when the music stops, there are plenty of chairs left and nobody to fill them. So if you lose your starting quarterback in this league, chances are overwhelming today. There's no Earl Morrall sitting out there to back up Greasy. You're going to lose.
And by the way,
done for that year.
Look at the next story and tell me it doesn't apply there.
That's right. Right? That's right. Andrew Luck is in the news again, kind of, because former Colts coach Tony Dungy told his NBC broadcast partner Dan Patrick that owner Jim Irsay confided a few weeks ago that Luck's issues with his shoulder are more mental than physical. Dungy thought he was off the air in commercial break, I believe, at the time, but said to Patrick during that daily radio show, Irsay said, quote, "It's inside his head now," close quote. Luck, the Colts determined last week, is out for the season. Tony, does it sound like Irsay is questioning Luck's toughness? And if so, is that fair?
I'm not going to try and decode Jimmy Irsay and what he says. But if I owned the Colts and I was told for some long period of time, and nobody ever told me this wasn't true, that Andrew Luck was going to be ready this season, and I was led to believe he would be ready this season, and I see him and he hasn't played at all, I would wonder what was going on. Similarly, there's a report that Sam Bradford was just placed on IR. If I owned the Vikings and the guy played one game, and I would wonder what in God's name has happened to Sam Bradford.
Yeah.
So I think when you own teams and your guy isn't out there, you wonder what it is. Is it physical? Is it mental? It's always struck me that Andrew Luck is a football player at heart and wants to play.
Steve Young has told us how tough he thinks he is.
He isn't ready to play. But I think there does come a point where you actually ask yourself out loud, do you think he'll ever play again?
Well, teams, particularly in football, are constantly asking this about every player in the room. That's how you assess toughness. That's how toughness has become such a quality, such an endearing and necessary quality in all pro sports, but certainly in pro football. We know players talk about this. They say on the record in front of a lectern, "Oh, we don't question each other's toughness." And what do? They do it all the time. It's a constant theme in every NFL room. College football,
like Cam
too.
Newton, like Ben Roethlisberger,
big, strong, tough guy in the pitch.
And runs
and, you know
and gets hit.
As tough as you can be, of course, at some point, it is mental. Because you don't want to take those shots. Who wants to take those shots?
So, but I mean, we've sat here and we've condemned Jimmy Irsay a lot on this show.
Yeah.
I understand this.
I do too.
I understand why he may feel this way. The Phoenix Suns finally pulled the trigger on the Eric Bledsoe trade. They sent their disgruntled point guard to the Milwaukee Bucks for Greg Monroe and a #1 pick. What makes this interesting is the Greek Freak has him playing a lot of point guard, and Bledsoe's not going to play center. Wilbon, does this trade make the Bucks a contender in the East?
No. There's 3.5 contenders in the East. There's Cleveland, Boston, maybe Washington, maybe Toronto on some level. Those next two. That's it. Milwaukee's not ready for that. Milwaukee has to take steps to get to contention. They've got the player to build around in Antetokounmpo. I know you don't like to say his name. Isn't that cool to say it though? Fight with me. Antetokounmpo.
Antetokounmpo.
Very good. So. Bledsoe, I think.
Hey, I think I've got it. Antetokounmpo.
Very good. Now you're going to start singing it. You're going to put it in a rap song.
Yeah.
So, Tony, Bledsoe comes in and he does something that we've seen happen with Cleveland. LeBron can play point guard, and he is the best point guard they have down the stretch, but not every game, every night, every minute. So Bledsoe, who's got some physical skills and has been hurt and couldn't get out there, and they wanted out of Phoenix, he, I think, will help Milwaukee, make them a contender. No, but Antetokounmpo needs to go back to doing what he does at forward.
Bledsoe is not a kid. He's been in the league. This is his 8th year.
Yeah.
His statistics in Phoenix are good, but I think the fair question is he just piling up statistics on a bad team? Because they did a bad team.
Plural,
So that's what you don't know. I will be honest with you. I know that this year it seems to me that Philadelphia is the sort of darling team of a lot of NBA guys, and maybe Milwaukee might be second because the Greek Freak
I think that's about right.
is so talented. They're not particularly good right now, but everybody looks to see who's going to get better in the future. I don't know anybody else on that team. I don't. I know you do, but I don't. And that reminds me of a couple of years ago, 3-4 years ago maybe, when Anthony Davis got to New Orleans and was lighting it up, and they didn't really make the playoffs, and then they had to get more people, and they still haven't made the playoffs.
That's right.
So you wonder when you look at a team like Milwaukee, which has this one great dominant player, are they any good as a team?
I don't think of this from the Phoenix point of view briefly. Also, they had an asset to trade, right, in Bledsoe, and everybody knew that, although when they diminished that asset to me, the value of him, when they said he's not playing for us again. But at some point, there were conversations, I remember this summer, involving Kyrie Irving and the pick that turned out to be Josh Jackson for Bledsoe. If Phoenix, which one of those would you like? Did you get enough? You got a conditional pick from Milwaukee?
No.
Huh? And Monroe?
But you know what? That ship has sailed.
It sailed. It
did.
Clearly.
Sailed.
Now it's time for LeBron's mood meets Millennium Theater, Tony. LeBron posted on Instagram a meme of the cartoon character Arthur's balled up fist with the caption, "Mood." It was posted shortly after Kyrie Irving's game-winning shot down in Atlanta last night, and everybody in the world of a certain age has rushed to decipher exactly what that means. Tony, we are not of that certain age.
We are not.
But I'm sure you'll venture a guess nonetheless, And after you do, tell me what's the bigger deal, the obsession over LeBron's posting or Kyrie's performance down in the ATL?
In the words of Bill Belichick, I don't do a lot of snap face or Insta chat. I don't do those things. Well, I don't know what this means, but I do know this. I know that LeBron goes to social media to play with all of us all the time.
Right.
To reveal
That's
this,
right.
that, or the other thing, and to keep everybody
That's how
guessing.
he communicates.
So I'm going to leave that for younger people to decipher, and I'm going to talk about the Boston Celtics and Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving's playing great. The Boston Celtics are playing great.
How many in a row?
9 in a row at the moment. And I just want to, let me just get to this. They lost 3 starters off their team last year. They traded away Isaiah Thomas. They lost Avery Bradley. They lost Jay Crowder. They bring in Kyrie Irving, a great player. And then they bring in Gordon Hayward to play 5 minutes.
So they lost another starter.
Okay. So with a team that nobody really knows each other, they've won 9 in a row, which leads me to believe this, and please feel free to tell me I'm wrong, that Brad Stevens may be the greatest coach in the history of basketball since James Naismith. Because he's getting max production.
It's early, and they've won a couple of impressive games. I told you the night that Gordon Hayward got hurt, and you said, "Oh, this is done. They're a year out." I said, "Wait a minute. There are 2 impressive players on that roster, young stud wingmen, Jaylen Brown and the kid from Duke,
Tatum,
whose name I always forget.
Jason Tatum.
They can play.
Yeah.
And most importantly, Tony, they are long, athletic, big, strong kids." Somebody's got to try to begin to guard LeBron James as we project and go back to LeBron again. You got to deal with LeBron James in the equation. And Gordon Hayward wasn't going to do that because he ain't going to guard LeBron James. But Tatum and Brown can help to do that. And they are young wings. They all play the same position. It cuts their depth. But Boston has looked terrific. Now, let's go back to LeBron for a second. Who was he talking to? I just thought he was doing what he normally does. And there are those out there of a certain age that, oh, no, this is questioning his own teammates. I don't know what is questioning. I'm not into memes or yet Instagram.
Here's what we know. We were very critical of Kyrie Irving for wanting to leave that situation. Maybe this is going to work out for Kyrie Irving.
It might.
Maybe Kyrie Irving on his own team like Boston is going to be one of the great players in the league because as an offensive player, he's unstoppable.
You know what else?
Player.
His assists are up.
Yeah.
He has not dominated the ball was a legit criticism in the past.
Let's take a break. Coming up, Adrian Peterson has been great for the Cardinals, but have the Saints been even better without him?
And there's Notre Dame or Miami for 30 about them more recently. Notre Dame or Miami football?
Probably Miami. Time for toss-up where 2 men enter, and the one who sits across from me never seems to win.
What do they enter?
Very weird. What's first?
Toss-up, more impressive, Adrian Peterson or the Saints without...
But you know what?
We did last week,
But the
37 for 159.
The Saints don't lose anymore.
No, they don't.
No,
5
they
in a row?
don't. The Saints have now, they're 4-0 since he's left. They're averaging 32 points a game. Everyone thought, and by everyone I mean you, that Sean Payton was misusing Adrian
not
Peterson.
using him. He wasn't using him.
Now their running game is getting 150 yards a game. So maybe Sean Payton knows what he's doing.
You know what? My point is this. If your running game was going to be so good, then why the hell would you waste the resources to get Adrian Peterson? And by the way, Peterson's been great. Tony, he's got 99 career touchdowns. One more, he goes into a place with the likes of Jim Brown.
He doesn't have 99 in Arizona. He's got a couple.
But he's in Arizona now.
Right.
And they need something to help them. I know they only beat the Niners.
They're no good.
And it's hard. They're 2-1
They're no good.
with him.
No,
but they're a disappointment. But he's not a disappointment.
They got shut out by the Rams
helps.
with him. I mean,
Rams are real good.
Yeah, but they're not good. Next.
Toss-up, which team winning would be better for college football, Notre Dame or Miami?
Notre Dame. It's the University of Football in the United States of America. Like when the Yankees are good, it's good for baseball. When the Celtics are good, it's good for basketball. When Notre Dame is good and great, it's good for college football. Now, Miami, too. In fact, that rivalry, the Notre Dame-Miami rivalry, when that's really good, that's fabulous. But my position on Miami right now is that under Mark Richt, they're not quite what they were with Jimmy Johnson and some of the guys after Jimmy Johnson. Yeah, I think Notre Dame winning is better.
Let me ask you a question. I know you'll give me a real honest answer, not a fraudulent fake news answer. If we went out here and found 100 football fans, we're in the nation's capital, we can find them anywhere. 100, they can't be affiliated with Indiana or South Florida. 100 football fans who identify as such.
Yeah.
What percentage of those 100 do you think would be rooting for the U on Saturday to win this game?
I think it's going to be very close to 50%. I don't think it's going to be more necessarily.
I don't think that
because
at all.
Notre Dame draws from all over the country.
It's not about draws.
Yeah.
Rooting against the Yankees
you can
and
do that.
rooting against the Celtics
but
and rooting against Notre Dame is part of the sport.
Hold on for 1 second.
Huh?
You can root against the U, too, because they're
just saying,
almost
but the
the same.
U has the
Next.
Rebels.
Toss up more
Like me.
disappointing rookie, Markelle Fultz or Lonzo Ball?
Well, it's Fultz because he doesn't actually get on the court.
He doesn't play.
First he says my shoulder hurts, and the team says there's nothing wrong with him.
I don't doubt
Then
his
the team
shoulder
says
hurts.
there's something wrong with him.
Yeah.
So, no, he's not on the court. I mean, he's behind Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Now, Lonzo Ball hasn't been any good at all.
We ain't been shooting it. He ain't been shooting
He can't shoot it. He's actually under 30%.
Yeah.
But you know what? He has a presence on the court that commands your eye. So I am more willing to watch him struggle in the hope that he would get better than I am. I've lost track of folks.
Yeah, I still like Lonzo Ball. The presence is when he has the ball in his hand, he's looking for teammates.
That's right.
That's
right.
the gift.
That's right.
Now, you got to shoot enough to bring people up on you so that passing is effective. And he hasn't gotten there yet. But here's what he's doing. He's playing and practicing. We saw a practice video yesterday. He is playing and practicing and knock on wood healthy. Full 76 minutes.
No.
That's 2 games worth. That's all. That's the only.
And the other part is that everyone expects you when you're a rookie with the 76ers to not play at all.
Red shirt.
And he's not playing at all.
Red shirt.
You know,
That's what it is.
next.
Last one, toss up more likely to get one more season, Hugh Jackson or Ben McAdoo?
Okay, so Cleveland, which was 1-15 last year, if they're 1-15 or 0-16, you can't bring Hugh Jackson back, because if you do, you're saying losing's okay.
But you could in Cleveland. They haven't won anything in a long time.
Now, Ben McAdoo should probably be fired today. But it is also true that Ben McAdoo's roster is decimated by injuries, and he still probably has a better
Cleveland
chance.
has no injuries. They lost their Hall of Fame tackle.
I think he has
for the
a
first
better
time in 10 years.
One guy who never helped
the
them
only
win.
one.
Never helped them win. Whereas Odell Beckham Jr. helped that
last
team
year.
win. I
Last
think
year.
that you know what? If I have to answer the question, I'm going to say it's more likely. I don't think either will be back, but it's more likely Hugh Jackson will be back because Cleveland is a clown show.
It's more likely that Jackson will be back because they have gone out and said, look, winning at a certain level is not the only priority here. This other guy's coaching in New York City, baby.
you gotta win.
Or across the street from it.
Yeah.
And I know he made the playoffs last year. They got rid of Tom Coughlin. They can get rid of Mr. Slickhead.
If winning in a 16-game season, if winning isn't the priority, what?
Pardon the Interruption is presented by Sky Vodka. Make every day. Please drink responsibly. Part of Happy Hour.
Happy time, people. Happy 28th birthday, Sonny Gray. The starting pitcher was one of 3 big-name starters to find himself on a playoff roster late in the season. Gray, Yu Darvish, Justin Verlander. Houston's Verlander pitched well in the World Series. The Dodgers' Darvish did not. And the Yankees' Gray finds himself on a young and promising roster, but without a manager.
Can they patch it up with Girardi?
The longer it takes, don't you think that's possible?
I don't know. It seems like some acrimony in there. If I'm Girardi, I can do whatever I want. Be a free agent. Make some money. Enough with the pressure.
Happy anniversary, Steph Curry. On this day last year, you set an NBA record by hitting 13 three-pointers in a win over the Pelicans. Last night, Curry had only 2 threes in the Warriors' 17-point win over Miami. Oddly, the Warriors won while scoring fewer than 100 points for the first time since April of 2016.
What's stunning, and this happened at least a couple of times last night, is when you see a Steph Curry 3 outright blocked. That happened a couple of times last night.
Happy trails to tonight's game for Joel Embiid. Despite not having played since last Friday, the 76ers will hold out their porcelain star against Utah following a process called load management. Sixers, what a load that is. Sixers coach Brett Brown said, quote, I follow the instruction of our medical people, unquote. Who's running that team exactly?
Like most franchises now, the medical people and the GM. I mean, Tony, they got these young assets. They want them out there for a long period of time. Embiid is way too important to them to risk. Obviously, that's the way they feel.
He hasn't played since last Friday.
Okay, he'll get there.
One error. The Pelicans did make the playoffs in 2015. They got swept by Golden State. 2 omissions. The Texans released quarterback Matt McGloin and signed Josh Johnson, who, get this, has not thrown a regular season NFL pass since 2011.
Collusion.
And 3 UCLA freshman basketball players, including LeAngelo Ball, were arrested for shoplifting in China ahead of Friday night's season opener against Georgia Tech.
So
don't do that.
You can just bring anybody back in the league. You could just play.
That's right.
If you were, not even around.
Theismann wants to play. Big finish. Here we go. Roger Goodell reportedly offered to meet with Colin Kaepernick one-on-one. Should Kaepernick go?
Collusion. Yes, he should go and talk to him. I don't care about the law case. Of course, I wouldn't care about this. So he should go talk to the commissioner. The Vikings are activating Teddy Bridgewater, but Case Keenum will reportedly remain the starter. Collusion?
No, they're 6-2 at this point. You stay with what got you to 6-2. Kobe told Complex, quote, fast forward 20 years from now, if basketball is the best thing I've done in my life, then I've failed, unquote. Is he right?
I don't believe he's right. I also believe he's ambitious. He's got plans, like Magic Johnson, beyond his basketball life. Good for him. Mike Trout did not make the list of 3 AL MVP finalists. Does that make sense to you?
He missed a lot of games. He only played 114 games. Jose Altuve is going to win that, and he should. Last one, Tuesday night, Maction. Akron at Miami of Ohio. Who got
Akron? But nobody's having the kind of great year in that conference we've seen in some seasons. Not.
I haven't seen
Northern
it.
Illinois.
We're out of time. We'll try and do better than next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on that app, on Apple Podcasts.
University of Maryland, hang in there. We're coming.